No charges here from the Department of Justice. Perhaps optically it could be an issue for the president, and also interesting to see them call attention to, as the president just pointed out, the differences between this classified documents case and the classified documents case for the former president, in which he has been charged with many felonies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were not expecting charges to come out in this case in any case because of the difference in behavior. You know, Biden cooperated. He sat for interrogations. He, gave back the documents, major difference in their behavior. But as you said, I mean, the image of him that came out of this report is almost as damning as maybe charges would have been, even though Robert Hur, the special counsel, said he didn't think they were able to seek and get, conviction in court. He would have come off as a sort of sympathetic elderly gentleman with a foggy memory.
A special counsel report that describes the president as, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory, unquote. How common is it to see that type of characterization?
Never heard this before, at least not from
Never.
An official investigative report. I mean, this is definitely going to be part of the fray coming up.
It's hard to deny the potential political implications here. He's just been branded by special counsel as elderly with a poor memory, kind of getting at one of his greatest weaknesses as a politician.
This is going right to his Achilles heel, for sure.
Well, as he seeks re-election in November, and very likely will be running against in that general election, the former president, Donald Trump, who has been charged in his own documents case, but also has been kicked off the ballot in Colorado, at least for now, on the grounds of the 14th Amendment, which is why at the Supreme Court today, those 9 justices were hearing arguments in that case, deciding whether or not they will allow it to stand. It seemed, though, Sarah, that the justices were pretty skeptical of the decision that Colorado made.
We came away from this with the idea that they are not preparing to kick Trump off the ballot. There are real questions, from both liberal and conservative justices, about whether one state could kind of lay down the law that could then affect, states across the country. Trump's lawyer in this case asked for a resolution that would sort of level the playing field for the entire country, and it seemed from the questions from the justices that that's their thinking too.
We heard earlier today from the Palm Beach County State's Attorney Dave Ehrenberg, who talked about Donald Trump's other case. This is the immunity case that may well end up before the Supreme Court. Here's what he said.
I don't think there's a chance in the world they're going to give a president absolute immunity like Trump is seeking. But Trump's strategy really is delay, delay, delay. And if they grant cert and they take a long time to review and make a decision, then Trump will win by losing.
Sarah, he has till Monday to make this request of the Supreme Court?
Yes, the deadline is Monday. He has said he will appeal. The filing could come in any time between now and then, but we're expecting it most likely on Monday.
All right. Great, Sarah. Thank you for your great reporting and insight. Sarah Forden here on Balance of Power as we turn now to Jack Fitzpatrick from Bloomberg Government. After another fascinating day on Capitol Hill here, Jack, it's good to see you. This border deal, coupled with money for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, failed miserably yesterday in the Senate when it went up for a procedural hurdle. Excise the border stuff, and the bill passed that same procedural vote today. Is this going to pass the full Senate?
This is good news for supporters of Ukraine, which is the real X factor and the heaviest lift. It is not the finish line. They got through this procedural vote with 67 votes. They needed 60. You can still change your vote in a subsequent procedural vote because the conversation now is what kind of amendments do members get to offer and what do they get a vote on and do they succeed. There's a whole universe of amendments that members have filed. They may still be filing more. There are behind-the-scenes negotiations on what gets a vote. So it's absolutely not in the clear yet in the Senate, but the fact that they managed 67 votes for that first hurdle was a good sign. Of course, the House is an even heavier lift. So there are plenty of issues remaining in Congress generally for Ukraine aid, but this was one good sign for Ukraine aid supporters in the Senate.
Well, let's talk about the House, though, because even if the Senate does all that work, questions around how long that work may take if you don't have unanimous consent, if Rand Paul makes good on his threat to make things not go quickly. If it passes with enough of a bipartisan majority in the Senate, how difficult would it then be for Speaker Johnson to not put it on the floor in the House?
This has been a conversation for a while, and people like Chris Murphy, the lead Democratic negotiator, have said we want as many votes as possible. The fact that with details still remaining to be worked out, you're talking about 67 votes for a procedural vote, not 80, 85. That's not a huge amount of momentum. There are House Republicans who you'd be surprised to hear say this. Mike Rogers yesterday, the House Armed Services chairman, said he doesn't think that this can happen in the House without immigration measures, despite the fact that that's exactly what melted down. So it is a pretty mainstream position in the House to at least be skeptical of this, if not outright opposed, even from people who have generally been supportive of Ukraine. Right now, what we can say is it's very complicated to imagine House Republican leadership bringing this up and not facing huge repercussions from conservatives.
Complicated indeed. We're glad you're covering it for us. Jack Fitzpatrick of Bloomberg Government, thank you so much. Now, elsewhere on Capitol Hill, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was testifying before the Senate today. And Republican John Kennedy, a member of the Senate Banking Committee, raised concerns about inflation.
You don't think we need to get these prices?
Wages are also up, and wages are up
They're not
more.
up 24%. They're not up 27%.
Well, what is true is that the median worker in the United States, if you compare today with 2019, can buy the same basket of goods with $1,400 left over to save or spend. So Americans, on average, are better off in spite of the fact that the level of prices is higher.
Let's turn now to Bloomberg's Kate Davidson, who leads our Fed coverage and pays close attention to the economy. Kate, obviously the Treasury Secretary was trying to paint overall a positive picture of the economy, but she did highlight some risks during her testimony today. Just walk us through your takeaways.
Yeah, sure. So this is a testimony that she gives regularly. The Treasury Secretary gives looking at financial stability risks, right? She's the head of the Financial Stability Oversight Council. So monitoring these financial system, financial system risk is a big part of the job. She flagged commercial real estate. She was asked about, of course, that's been in the news with New York Community Bank. She said officials are monitoring that. I think surprisingly today, she talked about concerns about non-bank mortgage lenders. She even went so far as to say that there was a concern that if there was a period of stress, that there could be a failure. That's in part because those kinds of lenders, they're not like traditional banks. They don't have deposits to sort of support them in perhaps a stressful period if people were to pull money. So I think that that was certainly interesting that she talked about that. But her biggest role, one of her biggest roles, especially this year, is as the president's arguably chief economic messenger. And so as you showed at the beginning, she was really there in large part to push back and argue, yes, the economy is very, very strong, despite inflation still being somewhat high.
Is that an effective argument, Kate, when we know for a fact, based on our polling and just anecdotal evidence, that people are still feeling the pinch of inflation? They know the difference between prices now in 2019. Does that argument resonate with anyone to suggest that they have more buying power because their wages went up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the best argument they can make, right? I think that Senator Kennedy was definitely tapping into something that we've written about at Bloomberg, which is right, that if you look back on 2019, pre-pandemic, prices are up, and that wasn't that long ago. I mean, people remember that, and they remember every time they go to buy something that's higher than it was, they remember that it used to cost less. And her argument is, well, prices have come up, but because of Bidenomics, because of the strength of this recovery and actions the administration took, and this is her argument, that we've seen this incredible growth and wages have gone up. So yes, even though prices are higher, people are taking home more in their paychecks. But as we've seen, I think that there's still a disconnect between what Americans are feeling. That may be true, but people aren't quite feeling it yet.